Good day, everyone. I'm Morelli Sinsuat, Executive Director of PUBLiCUS, and welcome to another live edition of the Pahayag Election Report. On today's episode, we will discuss the state of the races for mayor and vice mayor in Metro Manila, the nation's capital and economic powerhouse, as observed on the Pahayag NCR Tracker Survey conducted between April 8 to 13, 2022 by PUBLiCUS. NCR Tracker Survey April gauged the election sentiments of 1,625 registered Filipino voters residing in Metro Manila. The survey sample was randomly drawn by Pure Spectrum, a US-based panel marketplace with multinational presence. The margin of error, or MOE, is plus or minus 10 in most NCR LGUs, except for San Juan, where it is 12%, and Pateros, where the MOE is 14%. As always, Pure Spectrum would like us to remind you that samples provided by their company are not affiliated with any bias or political party. All opinions voiced in interpretation and analysis of the data are those of the writer or project sponsor. You can learn more about the methodology of our Pahayag brand of surveys by viewing the full report on our website, publicusasia.com. And now, let's go on to the results. In general, it appears that the vice mayoral races in the NCR appear to be a hot mess. 11 out of 17 vice mayoral races in Metro Manila are considered battlegrounds, with two or more candidates statistically tied for first place based on the applicable margin of error. The vice mayoral battlegrounds are Caloocan, Malabon, Manila, Marikina, Muntinlupa, Navotas, Parañaque, Pasay, Pateros, San Juan, and Taguig. To find out the details of our survey results in these vice mayoral battlegrounds, you can refer to the NCR Local Election Preferences Report available on our website. A link to the report is found in the description of this video. Meanwhile, NCR mayoral races appear to be generally less competitive in April compared to March. Two former battlegrounds, Caloocan and Quezon City, are now only considered competitive races based on the April survey data. In Caloocan, Congressman Along Malapitan now enjoys a statistically significant lead over Congressman Egay Arice. Malapitan earned 39% of the vote among Caloocan respondents for mayor. Arice is now polling at 17%. However, the 27% of Caloocan respondents who were undecided about their mayoral vote could tip the balance in either candidate's favor. In Quezon City, Mayor Joy Belmonte once again holds a statistically significant lead over Congressman Michael Defensor in the mayoral race, according to our April NCR tracker. After falling into a statistical tie for first place with Defensor on our March survey, Belmonte is now ahead of Defensor by 22 points, according to our April 8 to 13 survey data. This puts her lead outside of the 10% margin of error. 48% of Quezon City respondents to the survey chose Belmonte as their pick for mayor. 26% chose Defensor, while 15% remain undecided about their QC mayoral vote. There are only now two mayoral battlegrounds in Metro Manila, according to our data. One of these battlegrounds is Malabon, where former Vice Mayor Jeannie Sandoval and Councilor Enzo Oreto are still locked in a dead heat in the mayoral race. In our April survey, Sandoval narrowly edged out Oreta with 41% of the vote compared to Oreta's 37%. However, the two candidates are statistically tied for first place under the survey's 10% margin of error. In Manila, the competition to succeed Isko Moreno Tomagoso as mayor is as fierce as ever. There is now a five-way statistical tie for first place in the Manila mayoral race under the 10% margin of error. Incumbent Vice Mayor Honey Lacuna earned 26% of the vote, followed by Alex Lopez at 13%, Amado Bagaching at 9%, Onofre Abad at 7%, and Christy Lim at 6%. Again, all five candidates are statistically tied for the top spot. Significantly, the largest proportion of Manila respondents, 28% to be exact, are undecided about their mayoral vote. And now joining us live to provide deeper insights into the data is the Chief Data Scientist and Pollster of PUBLiCUS, Dr. David Barua Yap Jr. Good day, David.
Ahoy!
Now, David, it seems like the majority of vice mayoral races in NCR are quite close at this point. To what may we attribute this?
So that is definitely true. The vice mayoral races appear to be extremely competitive at this point in time. An argument can be made that this is because people tend to expend most of their attention on mayoral races. If you look closely at the vice mayoral races, many of them have undecided shares that are remarkably high. To wit, only Navotas, Quezon City, and Valenzuela have vice mayoral races wherein the share of undecided respondents is below 20%. Given this, it is likely the case that many respondents will simply opt to choose a mayor, then proceed to vote for his or her partner in the coming elections. In this regard, it is likely that the fate of a vice mayoral candidate hinges on his or her mayoral candidate's fortunes.
So, David, you're saying here that when it comes to most or many of the vice mayoral races, it may come down ultimately to tandem voting for mayor and vice mayor.
Yes, that is my sense. Given the importance, at least in the minds of many voters, of the mayor relative to the vice mayoral position, I would think that it is more the case that they're going to be thinking more about their mayoral choices, and then just thinking of their vice mayoral choices as a function of their preferences for mayor.
Okay, David. Now moving on to the mayoral races, as we discussed earlier, one of the two remaining mayoral battlegrounds is in Manila, and this is one of the most closely watched races in NCR. Now, based on our data, who could we say that may have the edge in Manila, and what can we expect to happen as election day draws closer?
So, based on our 3 month series, the Manila mayoralty race appears to be heating up even more. This could be, at least in part, attributable to the emergence of numerous complaints lodged against the Domagoso Lacuna administration. The hotly contested and highly publicized sale of Divisoria, for example, likely eroded the support base of Vice Mayor Lacuna. The campaign against the incumbent Manila City administration by candidate Lopez appears to be gaining traction, at least in terms of eroding the support of candidate Lacuna. It is worth pointing out that she has dropped 18 percentage points from February to April. While she still has the lead, her current numbers do not in any way appear unassailable. If Lopez can consolidate the gains that he has made in the past weeks, then he has a shot at the de facto incumbent. Going back to your question, however, as it stands, it remains to be seen who is the primary beneficiary of the apparent decline of the support for Lacuna, given that the second place, quote unquote, candidates are more or less tied at around 10% to 12%. At the end of the day, at this point, it is extremely difficult to call the Manila mayoralty race.
Well, we will certainly be keeping tabs on Manila as this is a very interesting race. Now, David, another one of the closely watched races in NCR is the heated Quezon City mayoral race. There has been a lot of drama in that race so far. What is your objective assessment of the race between Belmonte and Defensor at this point, based on all of the data that we have on hand?
Despite the most recent developments, I would still say that the Quezon City mayoral race remains highly competitive. While it is true that incumbent Mayor Joy Belmonte managed to pad her lead somewhat in April, it is important to note that Mike Defensor is well within striking distance given the margin of error and the share of undecided voters in the sample. The observed rebound of Mayor Belmonte can be viewed to be expected. After all, she is the scion of one of the longest running dynasties in the national capital region. She has access to tremendous amounts of political capital and extensive support networks, which she can leverage to stave off challengers as she has done so in the past. Given all of these, it was always going to be an uphill fight, even for a seasoned politician like Mike Defensor. Moreover, the cases filed against her do not appear to have gained the same traction that the Divisoria case has in Manila. Nevertheless, candidate Defensor still has a shot, given that one, he enjoys the support of popular presidential frontrunner Bongbong Marcos, and two, he appears to have the political machinery to put up a fight against the Belmonte dynasty. In my view, the battle will be intense up to election day, particularly in the high density areas of Quezon City, of which there are several.
So now, David, you and I are, of course, residents of Quezon City, and I know particularly you are pretty well versed in the issues of the city. What do you think are will be the important issues, Quezon City election issues, moving closer to election day?
For in my view, I would think that it's always going to be how Quezon City is managed. I think that's one of the top of mind issues, at least as we emerge from the pandemic. If you recall, there were several controversies surrounding the manner in which the Quezon City Hall disbursed aid during the pandemic. And as you recall, it is one of the issues being raised against Mayor Belmonte. So I think these kinds of issues, how the Quezon City Hall serves the residents of Quezon City, will be the main sticking point that would likely decide the preferences of a wide swath of voters in Quezon City.
Now, before I let you go, David, maybe I'll just ask one general question for all of the mayoral and vice mayoral candidates in NCR. They might be thinking, what can they do down the stretch as we near election day in just a matter of weeks? What can they do to make a last push or a last surge and maybe come out on top in their respective races?
As someone who has been involved in several campaigns, at this point, since there are uh, fewer than 3 weeks left in the campaign period, it all boils down to um, hard work at this point. It's about how many people they can field at any given time and how many households they can reach in the shortest possible time possible. It's about making efficient use of the remaining time and other resources that they have, and making as compelling a pitch as possible and targeting the less firm voters across different demographic groups. If they have intel, for example, on which types of voters are less firm or less committed to certain candidates, then they can pursue targeted campaigns wherein they will specifically invest in areas or demographic groups that have support levels that are relatively loose, so to speak.
Okay, David, those are great insights. So before I let you go, is there anything that you would like to announce or anything extra that you'd like to say to our viewers today?
So we have just concluded our latest NCR tracker survey, and we have now switched over again to our national tracker survey. So we are going to be releasing that next week. We're going to be releasing the results of our latest national tracker survey next week.
Well, as on our previous episodes, Dr. Yap has promised that we will be providing wall to wall coverage with survey data left and right until May 9. So, in order to allow Dr. Yap to go back to the numbers, we won't take too much of your time. But again, Dr. David Yap, Chief Data Scientist of PUBLiCUS, thank you for joining us today. On behalf of PUBLiCUS, I would like to thank you for joining us for this live episode of the Pahayag Election Report. To stay up to date with the latest on the state of the race in the 2022 national and local elections, please take time to like us on Facebook at PUBLiCUS Asia and subscribe to our channel here on YouTube. We will see you soon again for the release of our April National Election Tracker Survey results. And we will also be doing a couple special videos with some data we have in our bank that may be of great interest to our viewers and to the public at large. So have a great day, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us.